do your people really understand what their responsibilities are as well, right? Because you'll be very surprised when you start asking them, hey, who are you and what do you do at this company? And if you compare that list with what who their supervisor thinks that that person's supposed to be doing, it'll probably be two totally different lists. To be honest with you, I find
And
that
that's
as
just,
well.
100%. That's recipes for disaster, right? Because he thinks he's doing a great job. The supervisor thinks he's doing an awful job because
Yeah, right.
they're looking at different lists. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the CM Mentors podcast. My name is Matt Graves. My co-host each week is Kyle Grandell. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, Matt, how you doing? Thanks for the welcome. I got a question for you when we get rolling here.
All right. Well, you're on the road as always. You're a busy, busy man coming to us from your hotel room, it looks like.
Yeah, it's from the hotel suite. This is the Microtel Inn. It's the only place in freaking Des Moines, Iowa that was like less than $100 a night. I can't believe it, man. And I'm not saying anything against Des Moines, but holy crap, this is about the lowest that I've done before. So
Man, I was in Fort Worth for a conference a couple weeks ago, and you couldn't get a hotel for under like $350. It was insane. Oh, downtown Fort Worth. It was somebody I was working with. They were going to go stay in Dallas the next night. He was looking downtown Dallas, and he finally found one for like $250 a night, and it was like the slum. I was like, gee, this is crazy.
oh, yeah. Well, the bed bug in serving me well so far. It's only been one night though, so we'll see how it does.
Right on. So this week we got Jerry Aliberti. He's the principal at Pro-Accel. He's the man behind Pro-Accel. So welcome, Jerry.
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited about this. I appreciate the invite.
So I think ever since we started the podcast, I've been telling Jerry, man, we got to get you on. We got to get you on. We got to get you on. And I put you off to like number 22 now. So I apologize about that. But man, we've had a lot of good conversations. We have had a lot of text messages and phone calls in the past, I don't even know, year probably. And just really wanted to get you on here. You got a lot of good insights on the industry and kind of what you're seeing for project success and estimating and all kinds of other fun operations things. So do you want to give them a little bit of background of kind of what you're doing at Pro-Accel?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, I help contractors create more repeatable project success by improving their field and their office operations, finding ways to reduce overhead, and helping them build high-performing teams. So it's a loaded message. There's a lot of work behind that, but as you guys know, this business is extremely fast paced. It's very challenging, and finding skilled management and finding skilled trained is becoming harder and harder. And that's the gap that I hope to help fill.
Yeah, so Jerry, you covered a lot of things in that. So, I mean, are there certain areas that you really focus on when you get involved with the projects? Like, do you spend a lot of time on the people side of things, a lot of time on like operations, and making things more efficient, or how do you kind of split that up so that the listeners kind of know what it is a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, I target small to mid-sized contractors, right? So it all depends on the pain points of the actual contractor themselves. They don't necessarily need to have pain points, right? They could be in a high growth stage as well, where they just need, where maybe they don't want to rush into hiring a vice president of operations, and they may need to bring somebody in to kind of help them coordinate and provide a little bit more guidance in establishing some systems and processes for new hirees, or taking what they have already, which they successfully built, and kind of maybe improving on that. It's not my role to come in and to rework everything. I mean, it's my role to come in and help. So it's either helping you in a growth stage, or maybe you just can't put your thumb on exactly what's happening with your operations and don't understand why your profits are running away from you. So I can help in all different kinds of angles.
Wow. Is there a certain type of contractor you would work with, specifically? Like, maybe is it like a GC or a subcontractor, what do you typically work with?
So I work with all types of contractors, whether they're a GC, a specialty trade, commercial, heavy civil. I mean, my main background is heavy civil, but I found that as I got going, the questions and a lot of the situations that were kind of recurring were happening in all different types of contractors. I'm not really niching down to heavy civil anymore. I can help I can help folks in the commercial space and specialty trade. Just recently, I was helping a plumber, right, who only dealt with residential, didn't do any commercial work whatsoever. So, it's all the above and within the construction world.
Sure. Is it location specific, or do you go all around, or?
No. I have proposals out in 5 different states right now. So, that's the beauty.
Good
I
for
mean,
you.
New York City is my background, right? That's my playground. So, and if any of you guys have ever come to New York City, I don't think it gets any more difficult than New York City. I mean, you're digging 50-foot holes next to 120-year-old buildings with underpinning and literally building stuff over people's heads and getting milkshakes thrown at you and glass bottles thrown at you. I've probably been cursed out so many times in my life in the last 20 years. It's not even funny. So that just adds to the stress, But
Oh man.
I'm not working on the streets anymore. So now I'm in an office, and I help contractors all around the U.S. I mean, we're in a beautiful world right now where this COVID has kind of presented this whole remote world, right? And a lot of people are opening up to it. I mean, even the largest consulting firms now, I was just reading an article, and they said that they don't even send their own people out anymore. And you're talking consulting firms where their engagements start at $1 million and they're not even sending their people out to your office, So it's just the world we're in right now. And I'm looking to take advantage of that. And I think it also helps the contractor themselves because it reduces the downtime on their end as well, right? So instead of engaging in a sit-down meeting all day long, it's more of a Zoom call. And then from there, you have your face-to-face interactions. It all depends on the project as well.
I've seen, talking about everything going, a lot of people being more open to virtual. I do think COVID kicked a very slow industry. Like construction is very slow to adopt technology, but I think COVID was a blessing in that regard, where it really pushed a lot of people to jump into the virtual stuff, which is really cool because if you need to have a team meeting of, say, like the owner, the architect, the contractor, well, they may all be scattered, right? It may take you 2 weeks to coordinate that, where I can have it scheduled for this afternoon. Just, hey, you want to jump on a Zoom call or Teams call, and you can get it just right then, and you kind of walk through it. So that's been a huge blessing. But what you're doing, meeting with contractors and stuff, are you seeing, if you're meeting with, like, say, a contractor's team to kind of help them, train them or something like that, are you getting the engagement through Zoom or Teams, or is it much better in person? I imagine it'd be hard to have that connection via virtual.
So I always start with what I call the ops assessment. It's like a discovery phase, right? It's a low cost. It's just it's something to engage in conversations and figure out why the particular client is experiencing what they're experiencing, and then from there I put together my observations, my recommendations, and a roadmap to get from point A to point B, whatever that may be for that particular contractor. And then from there, if they wish to have me on board to kind of implement that roadmap and those changes, then from there I provide 3 different options of a direction to go, and then from there it's more of an in-person interaction, at least in the beginning, right? But, again, I'm actually a part of a very large consulting community, and I'm backed by these consultants as well. And I would say the majority of them never, ever step foot in any of their clients' offices, and some of these people are doing $500,000, $600,000 engagements and they never meet their clients face to face. So it depends on the individual as well. I mean, again, I'm open to whatever is going to allow me to help my client as much as possible, right? Because I have a reputation to keep, and I have a business to grow as well. So
yeah, just play by ear, I guess, right? Whatever works best.
Exactly. Again, there is no one size fits all. So
yeah, you were talking about a minute ago. You're kind of seeing, because I thought maybe I've never worked for a general contractor, right? I worked for a subcontractor world, and now I'm at the owner's rep world. So I've kind of seen the contract from both sides. And I'm thinking, subcontractors are going to have different problems than a general contractor would. But you kind of said, everyone's sort of got the same sort of problems across the board. What are some of the biggest pain points you kind of see everybody having?
Like, for example, communication. Right? people just one owner just called me up. Actually, I had a call with him. Today's Friday. I had a call him on Wednesday, and he says, Jerry, every time I leave for vacation, my jobs tank on me. I mean, I don't know how long he's going away for, but he says his jobs tank on him. He says it's just a lack of communication, and nobody's really holding each other responsible or accountable. I talk about this all the time, right? There's so many moving parts in this business, and if each and every person isn't being held accountable, it's a problem. It's a problem, especially when you want to grow and you want to expand, right? I mean, when you're small, the super is the PM, is also the field engineer, is also helping accounting. But as you grow, the field super needs to be the field super, the PM needs to be the PM. And then from there, you need channels of communication. Mm-hmm. And then you need to really delegate tasks properly. And then when you delegate tasks properly, now everybody's going to be held accountable for those specific tasks. So that it all comes down to it all comes down to that. And then turnover is a big problem as well. I talk a lot about incentives as well. How are you going to keep your people? People don't want to wait around 12 months for a bonus. I mean, people want to push, but they want more of an excuse to push as well, right? And to me, I think incentives are the perfect thing. It's a win-win situation. If the owner's making money and the employee's making money, it's a win-win situation as long as everybody's doing it safely.
What are some good incentives you've seen?
Well, so you got to tie, like, for example, you take a project manager, you tie certain milestones and within that project to XYZ incentive, whatever it may be. But you got to be careful because they may be busting the budget that were presented that started in estimating as well, right? So it takes careful planning. It really takes a lot of questions and really understanding that particular company and how they're broken down. In estimating, you can't really tie an incentive to a low bid, right? Because you don't know if that low bid is going to make you money yet, right? Until you start getting the job, and then the job starts rolling, and then another common complaint that I hear is, why is my profits running away from me at the end of the job? Well, it's because a lot of your overhead costs aren't accounted for. You're so desperate, you wait too long to bid work. You're so desperate to win work, and then you bid work, and then you win it so cheap. And you think you got yourself a good price until you start building the job, right? And then it becomes a finger pointing game. I mean, we all know how that works. It's everybody else's fault.
Oh, of course, and that's what I've seen on incentives too. Because a lot of companies, they do project bonuses, right? So if your project completes, but it's like if you're on a big project, that's 3 or 4 years from now. Like, it doesn't really excite me today for a project bonus in 4 years. It's not tied together. So I think you got to keep people motivated and stuff along the way. You got to have smaller wins, I think, too.
I know a major contractor in the area over here who does that. And I know quite a few people who have left that company for that very reason. I mean, they're a big contractor. They're like $1 billion a year contractor. And I know several people who have left for that. People don't want to wait around 3-4 years for bonuses. I mean, in my opinion, when somebody gives you a 2-3% raise, you're barely keeping up with inflation. So is it really a raise? No, it's not a raise. I think what keeps you over the edge is the bonus.
You haven't been keeping up with inflation in the last few years.
Yeah, exactly, right? 2% raise the last couple of years is not cracking anything. I mean,
you still lost 6%.
Yeah, and then everybody wonders why everybody's leaving for a lousy $10,000 when they're making $150,000. It's because you're not taking care of them. I mean, get your A teams and take care of your A teams. I understand if you're your C and your D teams, but you gotta really take care of your A teams. I mean, there's many ways where you could take care of these people, and it's not always financially. It's also respect and the culture of the company, the environment of the company as well, right? Just if I could add one more thing, one crazy thing that I find more and more with contractors, while we're kind of talking about turnover here, is estimating, right? When you look at these people's estimating departments, they're like in dungeon basements with no windows, in cubicles that are 30 years old. Meanwhile, their project executives that should be out in the field running jobs, and their project managers are like in these beautiful office environments, right? Beautiful floor to ceiling windows. and they're never in their offices. Meanwhile, the estimators are stuck in the basements. Like what is happening here? These people are at their desk for 9 hours out of the day. You want to keep your estimators, make sure their environment reflects something that they really want to be a part of for 8-9 hours and sitting at a desk all day long. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, show that you care about them and you value their work.
yeah, exactly, right? Put some fake plants or something like that, show some greenery, Paint the mural on the wall of the sun or something. I don't know, or a beach. Paint the mural of a beach. For me, my happy place is mountains and beaches.
Well, and all I can say is that CEO here, and I'm in the bed bug end, so I guess I'm not doing very good, guys.
I mean, that's crazy. It almost looks like an RV. That's nuts.
I don't have my floor to ceiling windows just yet, so working on that.
It's all right. Baby steps.
That's funny. You were talking about too about turnover, and I'm kind of relating 2 points you just made. Talking about the guy, talking about when I go on vacation, everything falls to shit because he's gone, right? And I think about turnovers. I think a lot of times you get companies where the management, the leaders, they don't really give the reins to the next in line, right? They're not really giving them the ability to take it and run with it. So then, of course, whenever they leave on vacation, everything does fall apart. But I think too, a lot of people want that. What's the word I'm looking for? They want the autonomy. They want to be able to just do their job without getting looked over their shoulder all the time. And I think that's a big thing in turnover. Because like if I had somebody looking over my shoulder all the time, not that I'm doing anything bad, but like just let me do my job, go away. And so I think that's a big
micromanagement. Yeah, it's micromanagement, like how I talked about. I mean, but you also have to put yourself in a position where you don't get micromanaged as well. When I just started, I knew my first 5 years were the most crucial for me to really give myself a name, right? So what I would do is every single time there was a problem, instead of going to my boss and saying, "Hey, boss, this is the problem. How you want to fix it?" I would take a shot at it, and I would come up with 2 or 3 different solutions. And we always typically went with one of those solutions, or maybe they'll just add something to it, right? So, I mean, you got to put yourself in a position where you're not that person, where you're not that first person to get chopped as well. How are you putting yourself and how are you holding yourself accountable to put yourself on that A team as well, right? I mean, if you want to be a bench warmer, then just keep going to your boss and asking your boss what to do next, And then another thing too is when they tell you to do 1, 2, and 3, figure out how this 4th, 5th, and 6th step are going to work out and take a shot at it. Now if you're working with a guy or a gal who starts screaming at you because you got something wrong because you made an attempt, well, that's another whole topic, right? That's just not a good leader.
Well, Matt, we talked a lot about that with Angelo, and then also even and with Marty too, a lot about having employees and staff that, they take the ownership, they take it upon themselves to dive in and figure out problems. And the best thing that I like about what you just said, Jerry, is, if you have a problem, bring me some solutions too. Don't just come to me and say, "Hey, I got this issue. I don't know what to do." Well, all right, yeah. You're closer to this than I am. You just brought this issue to me. So then what solutions do you recommend? You're the one that knows more about this than I do.
Right. Exactly. I mean, listen, your project manager should be overlooking the entire project, looking in the long term. I mean, if you're out in the field as a field engineer and you're working with the super, it's your job to really handle all the day-to-day operations. I mean, like one big thing that I used to do when I just started was I used to go into the container boxes, and I knew the carpenters were going full speed ahead on the bridge decks, right? And I knew exactly what material they needed. So instead of waiting for them to call me to say, "Hey, we're running low on this," I would just make a master list of all the things that I knew they needed every single day. And I would just go into that C box, I call it C box, and just go every single day and figure it out on my own and just put the order in. If we were in stage 1 and we had 5 stages, I knew we were going to need it anyways, right? Especially nowadays with this whole supply chain issue, right? Are people really paying attention to their schedules? Are they making their own internal schedules and following critical path items to kind of stay ahead of the supply chain issues? There's so many different ways to kind of, if you really want to be good at what you're doing and you're just starting out, and your boss is the general super, let's say, think about where he's going to be, where his mind is going to be in 2-3 weeks from now, and figure out and try to figure out his pain points. You know,
That's
that's
something
my
that drive
advice.
me when I was on the sub side. That was something that drive me crazy. Is when the foreman would come to you and you're like, I'm out of material, or I'm out of a fitting or something, right? Like,
Yeah,
this is like a
right.
3-year project or a 1-year project. Like, you didn't think we were gonna need more? Like, why do you not like have enough? Like, I understand not having to get too much, but man, you got to stay on top of your stuff. And that
Right,
was
right.
just something that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, no, exactly. One thing that used to drive me crazy. Just one more story is I was running I ran a couple of jobs with this one particular field engineer, and we would group up at around 6:30 in the morning and do our morning huddles, right, for about 15, 20 minutes, and he would just walk into the door like 5 minutes to 7. Really young guy, 21, 22 years old, and he would be like, "So what are we doing today?" In the beginning, I was just so nice to him, and I would tell him. And then finally, I said, "You know what? If you're not here at 6:30, I'm not telling you what we're doing anymore today." And then he started showing up at 6:30 because he was left in the dust after that. And then he was getting yelled at by everybody else. So, it's construction, guys. You got to show up really early, and you're going to be working late hours. It's just the way it is. It's the nature of the business.
That's
You're
actually
not running job sites on a Zoom call. I'm sorry.
that's kind of segues into the next question I was going to ask. Though, is for project success and kind of with all the experiences you've had, what are some like advice you would give sort of the next generation of construction folks coming into the industry?
In what particular topic?
Like basically on construction or project success, like how to manage a successful project, kind of as a kind of an entry level person, because really the whole point of this podcast is really trying to give back and really kind of target kind of that next generation coming in and trying to give back to those guys. So if they're coming into the industry, and we got a lot of them that are just coming into the industry from maybe just out of college or maybe from one career transitioning to another career in construction. And so, they're boots on the ground, first day, eager to make a difference, eager to be successful, make this project successful. And they said, Jerry, what do I do to be successful? What do you tell them?
Well, certainly some tips are, actually just touching up really quickly on the upper level is you got to arrange your teams really early, including your field engineers and these younger generation people that are just coming in. They need to be a part of the job earlier on to really see all the stages, right? Once you get your team in order, you got to start getting your submittals and your paperwork in order, right? So as you're building up your office, I mean, when you start a project, it's like starting a small business, if you think about it. Well, a small business, if it's $100 million job, I mean, think about it. You're finding real estate, you're mobilizing, you're building hopefully high performing teams. I can't speak right now. You're mobilizing on your site. You're developing you're bringing in your resources, right? And then you're starting your construction. So you gotta start getting your paperwork in order really quickly, because once you start hitting that ground with your first shovel, I mean, the last thing you want is to not move forward because you're lacking on your paperwork side, right? So if you're a younger guy or girl just getting into the business, I mean, one habit I always had was that as I was starting new operations, I would write it down. I would write down the operation. I would write down my productions. I would write down my crew sizes. I would write down the things that I need to be careful for the next time, or things to watch out for. I would make a photocopy of the plans and the specs. I would take some pictures. I actually have a binder right next to me. It's been going on for 21 years right now. I call it my construction Bible. And I have so many different operations and so many different crew sizes and productions and all the different types of materials that I had, because you may see an operation today, but you may not see it again for 2-3 years. At least now you got your paperwork and you can go back and boom. I mean, you'll be the superstar of the operation. Two, it goes back to what we talked about before, is try to stay 2 steps ahead of your boss. Maybe not your first couple of months because it's a little difficult, maybe not your first year or two, but as you start getting going, things become a little bit repetitive, and projects hopefully start to run themselves after the first year or two, if it's a 3-year job, let's just say, right? And then, find your mentors as well. There's a lot of cranky people in construction. Typically, I always found that they are very smart people, and they just don't want to bother. They're just tired. I mean, at a certain point in this business, guys, it's so fast paced. It's a 45 year marathon, and when you start reaching your upper 40s and your 50s, you just become tired. You got to find your mentors who really want to give you the time of the day. I was very fortunate in the beginning. I really had a lot of great mentors, people that kind of just gravitated towards me instead of me gravitating towards them. And I mean, the list goes on. It's just you got to stay motivated, but it also goes back to the leadership side. Is what are you doing to keep them motivated as well, right? Are you allowing the younger generation to really make decisions? And when they make a decision, and if they mess up that decision, which is probably going to happen, what are you doing about it? Are you embarrassing them in front of 15 different people? I had one person who went out of their way to yell at people in front of other people because they wanted to show that they were the boss, and they were to admit that. And there's a lot of people like that in this business. Just the way it is. You can't change those people. They are who they are. Stay away from them if you can.
You made a comment about projects being kind of like a small business. And one lesson I learned with one of the companies I worked for in the past. So we had a short story here. We did new construction, but we also had a service side. And so we'd have our service side come out and help us with little odds and ends that they would do better than our new construction guys would do. And I was complaining to the president one time. I was like, man, they're charging, because they were like a subcontractor, right? But they would come out and they'd get billed like a subcontractor. Man, they're kind of screwing me on their costs and all these sort of stuff. And I couldn't get them to come out here. And I was just being frustrated. And I was venting to our president. And he basically said, like, look at it like a business. You are the president of this project, right? Like, if you have a company or if you have a subcontractor that's not performing, go to get someone else. But it was just a mind blow for me, because I was like, but don't we want to keep the money in house? Like, you know what I mean? Wouldn't you want to just keep it here versus send it down the road to somebody else? And he was like, you're the president of your project. I hire you to make sure this project is successful. Do whatever it takes to make sure this project is successful. And I was just like, wow. Like, just that, when you kind of have that mind shift of like, you are the president of your business and your business is this project. It kind of changes your thoughts on things.
And I'm going to add one more thing. One of the first pieces of advice I was given on my first field project was, Jerry, if you make, and this is more of a GC, and I've always worked for GCs who had to self-perform over 50% of the project, right? So he told me, he says, Jerry, if you make every decision, every financial decision like it's your own money, he says, you'll do just fine in this business. He says, you'll do just fine in this business. He says, if you start making decisions like, this isn't my money, I don't care, just order the extra $5,000 worth of this or $2,000 worth of this, that $5,000, that $2,000 is going to add up to be big bucks at the end of the project, when your budget's run away. There are so many different ways to lose money in this business. So many different ways to lose money. But, it's also a very profitable business as well. So if you have good, high-performing teams, they'll figure out how to value engineer these projects, and they'll figure out not how to cut corners the bad way, but they'll figure out how to maybe combine stages or not get too far ahead, but yet, hey, listen, our schedule calls out to be in area B in the next 6 months, but I think we could start grabbing that now, but you got to have that level of training also to figure out all that kind of stuff as well. And this is kind of how I help, some contractors as well, like the smaller contractors who don't really have the resources. Over here in New York City, a senior project manager is making $250,000, and they're costing the company $300,000 with benefits. So, a person like a smaller contractor doesn't have that budget to kind of get a senior PM from a larger contractor to go work for them as they're growing,
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the gaps that I hope to fill as well.
Jerry, would you say you ever see, or at least maybe how common do you see that you have people in the wrong roles in these companies? I mean, people that either got maybe, advanced too quickly in their careers, or they just, they got pushed beyond where their comfort is, and now they don't even know what to do because they didn't have the right mentorship. I mean, do you see that very often? And if you do, how do you address it?
So again, I've worked for all different size companies, and not even that. I just, I have people that I always kept in touch with from college and all. And And this conversation is always a big conversation because we all know many people who are put in their position that shouldn't have been in that position, right? So for example, I mean, it's a lot of who you know and not what you know. And that's for any industry, right? A lot of these people are who you know and not what you know. These people are coming from a completely different side of the business. And because someone that they know who works for a different company on another side of the business, right? And they'll just grab that person because they're familiar with them and they trust them. But yet these people have no idea how to manage people, right? Which is very important as you're growing. And they just don't understand that side of the business. For example, like I knew quite a few people who went from an inspection side to a GC side, and all of a sudden we're like these executives in the GC side. Well, that's a problem because it's a completely different world. You're self-performing your work. You're especially over here in the New York area. You have to control the unions because the unions are going to want to control your jobs, right? If you're not controlling the unions, they're going to control your jobs, and they're going to throw their book at you all day long. And I mean, as far as being pushed into a position that you didn't want to be, that's a tough one because a lot of people like to stay in their comfort zone, and you got to push yourself outside your comfort zone to really understand who you are as a person as well. But you also have to understand that if you see that you're not able to grasp and you're not able to pick up traction, and you're not willing to ask for additional training or you're not willing to ask for help, then you got to be willing to step up and say, hey guys, listen, I'm sorry. I wanted to give this a shot, but it's not working out. The company's suffering. I'm okay with you pulling me out of this position. I don't see that happening.
I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do that. I think I may have heard of one person. I know of one person, and it's a guy I've got to know recently. He basically said he told the owner, like, I need to do something else because this isn't working. Kind of the same thing. So I was like, man, that takes real balls to do that.
No, it does. I mean, listen, I know people who were pushed into like a superintendent position, like a senior super position, and they were like, you know what, guys, after this job, I don't want to be a senior super. I want to be an assistant super. I just don't want all the chaos coming straight to me, and me being the one who's delegating out to everybody else, and then having to follow up on everybody else. Just tell me what I got to do every single day. So there's people like that too, and quite honestly, I think a lot of people get into estimating because people get into this business. They want to be around the equipment, they want to be out in the field, they want to be in the middle of the construction, and then they start realizing, wow, man, this is really chaotic. This isn't as smooth sailing as I anticipated. It's a lot of hours. If you're working on roadways and highways, you're working a lot of nights, you're working a lot of weekends, and you're away from your family a lot. So I feel that a lot of people get into estimating because they just don't want to be out in the field and deal with all that chaos as well. So, but at least they have field experience, and they're willing to understand their limitations as well. So that's my take.
Jerry, what got you into construction in the first place? Let's back up for a minute here. What led you into it? What are your passions with it?
So as a kid, I always built things. I was always in my backyard taking like extra lumber that I had laying around, that my father had laying around, and I would just build things. It was in my nature. I mean, my mother always told me, my parents always said, you're either going to become an architect, an engineer, or a chef, right? Thank God I never got into being a chef because I except for barbecuing, I don't like cooking. I come from an off-the-boat Italian family. So my father, every September, also used to make homemade wine. And back then, they didn't have the 5-gallon drums like how they have now. So they had all the crates. I would take those crates and I would build clubhouses, and those crates would last me for 6, 7, 8 months, I was just always building things. It was just what I wanted to do. I mean, a part of me really wanted to get into carpentry or become an electrician. I went the school route, and I actually started. So I took architecture in high school. I majored in architecture. I went to a trades and technical high school, And then I went to engineering in college. After 3 semesters, I said, you know what? I don't want to be an engineer. I always thought that the only route I was able to go was structural engineering, which was definitely not something I wanted to do. So I went back into architecture. I actually got a degree in architecture. And then I actually got a job with an engineering company. Well, not an engineering company, but they did highways and bridges. So it was all engineers. So it was a little bit of a zigzag back and forth. And here I am now. I'm out on my own.
Very interesting. My first construction project, I must have been 7 or 8 years old. My neighbor and I built the tree fort, and it was a great time, man. We got our hammer and nails and 2x4s and a handsaw. We went out in the woods, and I mean, it was mostly pretty straight. I think I don't remember falling from it.
Yeah, I love landscaping too. I was always out in the garden, and I was always helping my father with his garden as well. So I mean, just like you, I was just outside all day long. I was around tools all day long. And then if it was the summer, if it was the winter time and it was snowing outside, I would go out and I would build like igloos and stuff. It was just everything around everything that I did. Remember Bob Vila Home Again? Remember that show, Bob Vila? I mean, now they got so much on HGTV. I wasn't watching. I mean, yeah, I was watching my cartoons, but on Saturday mornings, I was a 9-10-year-old kid watching Bob Vila Home. It's crazy. Like my mother's like, "What are you doing watching this?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just interested in it." The guy's putting siding on. I always really wanted to build homes. That was what I always wanted to do. So I talked about being a carpenter, an electrician. That I went to architecture, and then I ended up just getting a job in the middle of the city, building highways and roadways and bridges. So it's pretty interesting. I have a pretty interesting path.
I got into construction. Well, I went to college to do civil engineering because I thought I wanted to be a custom home builder. And I was like, in hindsight, like, I don't know how I thought the two of those connected. But when you're 18, I thought that was the path. And now that I've been out in the commercial world, I was like, I would not want to be a custom home builder. Like, there's too many emotions around it. And like commercial construction's, there's not really emotions. Like, build it for plans and build it for specs and do what the contract says. And so
my game plan was to invest in my own properties and just build my own properties and then sell my own property, and so I'm not dealing with a client all day long. So, but that's not always the case. Like, especially now with what's happening with the interest rates and all, you can't really do that as well. Or can you? I really don't know. I don't know enough about that.
Not either.
Well, from what I understand, those that have properties are doing well, and those that don't, they're kind of holding off. So
wishing that they had those properties back before.
Yeah.
Exactly. I tried moving down to Florida for a couple of years, and the property skyrocketed. And unfortunately, the Florida salaries are terrible. I mean, they're terrible compared to the rest of the 50 states, and I don't know how people are doing it. Really, it's crazy.
So I got one question for you. So say there's some small business owner, say subcontractor, right? And what is some like advice for like a low-hanging fruit, 2 or 3 low-hanging fruits they can do to kind of really help their business a little bit more efficient, a little smoother, kill a few pain points, kind of.
Hey, Matt, I'm losing you a little bit.
Yeah, it was getting a little
low-hanging fruit they can do.
Yeah, Matt, we lost you.
Man, my Wi-Fi's cutting out.
Yeah, you said something about a small contractor with 2 low-hanging fruits, and that's all I heard.
Let me try again. So if there's a small subcontractor out there, they can't go hire the $300,000 senior PM to come help them, get to the next level. Yeah. What is some low-hanging fruit they can do that's not real cost prohibitive, doesn't take a whole lot of effort, but can really give them the next step? Just kind of the easy things that give the most impact. You
mean like building their teams of what they have, kind of doing more with what they have right now?
Kind of just operations, business operations, just to kind of help. If you're a business owner, what can I do that's a low effort, the highest ROI to kind of help my team, help my company, help my operations?
So, I mean, one, I would kind of start with what you already have, and I would almost interview your own people and kind of see what they feel needs more help in. Get their feedback, and people want to have a one-on-one relationship with who they're working for, right? They really want to understand who they're working for, the personality that they're working for as well, right? So what I always encourage is maybe have a luncheon, a once a month luncheon, and just kind of get feedback from your own people and find out what's holding them back. What do they feel is not keeping them from being the best at what they really want to do? Or this goes back to our previous conversation. Are they in a position that they really want to be in? I know tons and tons of people that are not in their position. A lot of people are estimating they want to go out to the field, right? That's the perfect scenario. I mean, it's important to understand estimating so you could be successful in the field and vice versa as well. But understand who's working for you right now and really make a list of the skills that you have right now. I mean, that's really, it's a loaded question, Matt, and it really takes a lot of thoughtful questions based on what the company's resources are at that given time and who they have. Because I also know quite a few contractors who have been trying to find estimators and PMs and supers for years, and they just can't find the right people, So
I do like that idea, though, of tapping into your team, right? And really kind of making sure that you do have. And I went to a leadership class last year, and the leader, the gentleman who presented the class, he had this phrase. It was, I'm probably going to butcher the exact phrase, but it's having the right people in the right seat, doing the right job for the right reasons. And that's basically the recipe for success. And once you get those people, right, you may have the right people, but again, like in the book, Good to Great, I don't know if you read that one. It's all about having the right people in the right seats. You may have the right people. You need to be an estimator. I need to be in project management, and Kyle needs to be a superintendent. And we all kind of take one seat over to the left. And now we're really cooking, So
yeah, but something else. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say sometimes you just got to look at that. Just kind of how do you rearrange the puzzle pieces to make things better?
And let me add this: is that do your people really understand what their responsibilities are as well, right? Because you'll be very surprised when you start asking them, hey, who are you and what do you do at this company? And if you compare that list for who their supervisor thinks that person is supposed to be doing, it'll probably be two totally different lists. To be honest with you, I mean, I find that as well.
Oh, 100%. That's a recipe for disaster, right? Because he thinks he's doing a great job. His supervisor thinks he's doing an awful job because they're looking at different lists. Right.
And constantly giving constructive criticism is important as well. And people need to be able to take that as well. I mean, I remember back when I was in architecture and back then we weren't using AutoCAD. We would draft them by hand. And when the teacher came up to your perspective and your plans and with a red marker and just started writing on your drawings, oh man. Luckily for me, I didn't have too much of that, but you had to take it and you had to understand that it was to teach you. It wasn't to hurt you. So, and I know that's a problem with a lot of the younger generation as well, is they don't want to take that criticism, and you got to take it. It's that type of a business as well. So.
It was one of the hacks in my 25 hacks list. It was basically to solicit constructive criticism, right? And then actually do something with it. Yeah. I do think, I think every generation, but I think as the generation is getting, they may be harder to get that constructive criticism, which makes it even more of a superpower if you can do it, right? It gives you even that step ahead. If you can do it, you actually solicit it. You say, hey, Jerry, man, tell me where I'm sucking. Help me out here. And then you tell me, hey, you can do this, this, and this better. Like, okay. And if and you're doing that, you're wanting to improve. And if I come to you, you're going to tell that because you see I'm wanting to improve. And then if I actually go in and implement it and you make, man, I told him to do this and he's doing that. That's awesome.
It also matters who it's coming from as well, right? So if it's that person who I told you about before, who's that really cranky person, you're not going to take that criticism too well, right? Because you're just going to think that they're just being difficult with you. So it also really depends on who's giving you that criticism as well.
Well, and Matt, that hack's really good too, because if you think about it from the perspective of the person that has to give the feedback, it's a lot easier conversation if I need to give feedback and someone asks me for it first versus me having to come up with a way to organically create a discussion that leads into the feedback and do the sandwich thing. Start with something good, then give them the real feedback, then end with something good again. That's the way things are when you have to lead it yourself and start the conversation. But somebody just asking, hey, what can I do better? All right, let's have a real conversation now. Let's really get down to what's going on.
100%. It makes it so much easier for everybody, too.
Yeah.
So, well, I know Kyle's got to get out to a project site. Jerry, before we wrap this up, is there anything else you think you need to give out for the next generation they should know?
Just stay at it, stay motivated. I think there's a big gap going on right now, and which presents a lot more opportunity for a lot of the younger generation to really step up and to shine and to really stand out. You want to always be the big fish in the small pond. So figure out your ways. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll always give you some advice as well. But try to be the big fish in the small pond.
That's a really good point, Jerry. And Matt, I can't remember if we talked about this already with a previous guest or not. But for anybody that's new coming into the trades, into construction, there's a massive shortage. There's a huge shortage of workers, and it's only going to get worse over the next few years as people retire. That just creates opportunity. I mean, that means there's more opportunity to really prove yourself and be even more successful. So, I mean, take advantage of it. Take the bull by the horns. Do something with it.
Right. And it's not slowing down construction. I mean, the infrastructure spending bill hasn't even really started pouring into the economy yet. Supposedly a lot of contractors and states are holding back because they just don't have the resources for it. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's just someone's opinion or not. But, especially the infrastructure side, it's going to get really hot the next 10 years.
Exciting times in the industry, man. It really is.
Absolutely. It's exciting times for us as well. For us, yeah. So it's there's tons and tons of opportunity out there. So
100%.
Stay motivated and stay hungry. That's my biggest advice. And stand out.
So Jerry, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
So now I got a new website, www.pro-accel.com. You can send me an email at Jerry with a J, Jeroy at pro-accel.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always hanging around there as well, and that's how all three of us met. So it's a great spot to network. Just be willing to network. That's the problem. I hate when I reach out to people and you got to put their email address in order to connect with them because they want to know you. Like, why are you on LinkedIn if you want to just connect with people that you know already? It's to meet people like us. I mean, you guys are in Texas. I'm in New York. This is a beautiful thing, It's awesome.
Hell, Kyle's in Minnesota. I mean,
oh, he's in Minnesota. Okay.
Me and Kyle, we've never even shook hands. We met each other virtually through LinkedIn, had a bunch of phone calls. Hey, let's do a podcast. And one day we're gonna have to I guess actually meet face to face and fight. I guess I don't know, but
well, hopefully one day we'll all be at one seminar where we're all under one roof, man. That would be awesome.
Someone needs to set that up.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, thanks, Jerry, and thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man, it was fun.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me on, man. I look forward to the future.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay.